Hi Seals, welcome back. We're on chapter 26. Tilly has just read herself into a little princess, which isn't a very good thing for her to do because she's just found out that her mum fell in love with the main character from The Little Princess. And you shouldn't mix books with emotion. So she's obviously feeling like she should be part of that book, and she has read herself in, so it's not a good idea. So chapter 26, the last page. So the first bit of this chapter I'm going to read is an extract taken from A Little Princess. Once on a dark winter's day when the yellow fog hung so thick and heavy in the streets of London that the lamps were lighted and the shop windows blazed with gas as they do at night, an odd-looking little girl sat in a cab with her father and was driven rather slowly through the big thoroughfares. Okay. Tilly found herself with her feet in a freezing cold puddle at the mouth of an unlit, empty alleyway, not inside a cab, although she realised in hindsight that was probably for the best. It was bitterly cold, and at first sniff the air smelled of freshly baked bread, but there was something sour lurking underneath. The dirty water seeped through Tilly's trainers as she pressed herself against the damp wall and waited for something to happen. Just as she was starting to worry that things had gone horribly wrong, a black hansom cab rolled slowly past, and Tilly caught a glimpse of a round, pale face with large eyes staring out of the window. Tilly ran to the end of the alleyway and poked her head around the corner to see that the cab had stopped outside a large brick building with Miss Minchin Selects Seminary for Young Ladies on a big brass plate on the front door. A tall man wearing a thick grey overcoat stepped down from the cab and placed a shiny black top hat on his head. He moved with elegance and confidence of someone who the world had always rewarded simply for being alive. He reached back inside the cab and lifted down a small girl in a full coat with dark hair cut into a blunt bob, and the two of them held hands as they walked up the steps to the door and rang the bell. Tilly could see them whispering and giggling nervously with each other as they waited, and as the door opened to an unsmiling woman in a maid's dress, the girl pressed tightly into the man's side. Tilly felt frozen to the spot, trying to drink in every detail of the man on the steps, wishing she was closer so she could see his face properly. The sight of his protective arm around Sarah's shoulders filled her with a prickly feeling of envy, and she could almost feel the lack of his arm around herself like a phantom limb. Even after they had gone inside, she found herself unable to move. Despite the cold and fog, she felt hot and flushed and didn't know what to do next. She clutched her mum's copy of the book close to her chest and tried to think about what her mother would do, as the tiny glimpse of her father started to unravel her from inside. Be brave, be curious, be kind, she repeated to herself under her breath, as candlelight flared up in one of the front windows of the school, and Tilly saw the dimly lit shapes of people moving around inside. Excuse me, miss, do you have any spare pennies? A quiet Cockney accent said. Tilly looked down to see a girl who could only have been 6 or 7 tugging at the edge of her jumper. Her face was dirty and her hair a tangled mess. She was quite obviously starving, and Tilly rummaged in the pockets of her jeans, finding 20 pence. I only have this, I'm afraid, Tilly said, holding up the coin. I'm not even sure you'll be able to do anything with it, considering... The little girl turned it over in her hand. Are you sure I can have this, miss? She said. Of course, Tilly said, wishing she had something far more useful or warm to give the little girl. The ragged girl, bobbed a hasty curtsy and scurried across the road to a bakery lit up from within. Tilly shivered and kept her eyes on the school. After half an hour or so, the front door opened again and Captain Crewe and Sarah left. A tall woman dressed in black stood on the top step and waved them off, a broad smile on her face that dropped as soon as the cab door was closed again. Tilly stared at the retreating cab before flicking forward in the book to find the next scene, with the man her brain was still adjusting to, thinking of as her father. The fog swirled in tight around her so she couldn't even see her hand stretched out in front of her. It buffeted her hair and she struggled to stay on her feet. But as fast as it had billowed, it dissipated, and she found herself inside the school itself, in a decorated room full of eerily lifelike dolls in clothes. Within seconds, the door handle started to turn, and Tilly spun around, looking for somewhere to hide, sliding herself behind the rich velvet curtains just as the door opened. The deep voice of Captain Crewe filled the space as he and Sarah said goodbye to each other. "Are you learning me by heart, little Sarah?" Tilly heard her father say. "No," a small but strong voice replied. "I know you by heart. You are inside my heart." Tilly stood still behind the heavy curtains as she heard them hug each other fiercely, tears running silently down her cheeks as she cried for the father both she and Sarah were about to lose. After she heard the click of the door closing, she slipped back out into the room, only to realize that Sarah was still there, sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring into the distance. "Hello," she said politely to Tilly, not seeming particularly surprised that a girl had just emerged from behind her curtains. "If you don't mind, I would quite like to be by myself at the moment, if you please. So could you come back later, if you're coming to help me unpack?" "I'm not, I just—" Tilly had no idea how to explain herself, so instead she left Sarah sitting by herself and closed the door quietly behind her, nearly crashing into a skinny girl wearing a neat but very old dress with a dirty white apron over the top of it, with a mop cap on her frizzy brown hair. "I'm so sorry, miss," she said, looking at the floor and in doing so noticing Tilly's trainers. She looked up in surprise and her mouth dropped open as she took in all of Tilly. "I don't mean to be rude, miss," she whispered, "but who are you? If you're not supposed to be here and Miss Minchin finds you, I hope I'm not being out of line, but you aren't dressed like any of the other girls or anyone I've seen before. Are you from India like Miss Crewe?" "No, not India, but somewhere else that's rather far away, I suppose. Somewhere I really should be getting back to. It was nice to meet you, Becky," Tilly said. "How do you know my name?" Becky said, sounded surprised, but Tilly was already heading down the corridor, although she didn't know what to do next. She had no idea how she might find Captain Crewe now he had left the story, and she did not know what she would say to him even if she could find him. She decided the most sensible thing to do would be return to Pages & Co., make a plan, and then read herself back into the beginning when Captain Crewe and Sarah first visit the school. She could go to those opening pages as many times as she wanted, like watching a favourite film over and over again. She turned to the back of her mum's copy of A Little Princess, wondering if she could bring Oscar with her when she returned, and then stopped in horror as she realised that the last page was ripped and the last sentence wasn't readable. The bottom corner of the page was torn, as if caught in a bag or just worn out from reading and folding and bending. Whatever had happened, it rendered the last few sentences a mystery. Tilly slid her back down the wall into a corner as she tried to get her ragged breathing under control. She stared at the book in her hands, checking herself before she set off, especially so soon after Grandad had made it clear how careful she had to be. Hadn't she learned anything from Treasure Island? Tilly decided there was nothing else for it but to read the last line that was there and hope for the best. She took some deep breaths, tried to block out the shrieking of girls playing downstairs, and read. Then she told him the story of the bun shop and the 4 pence she picked up out of the sloppy mud, and the children who... Without warning, everything suddenly went black, as though the whole world had been plunged into a power cut. Oh, look, chapter 27 starts like it's in the power cut. Black out. So, I wonder what's going to happen to Tilly. You can maybe make your predictions and let me know what you think. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. See you soon. Bye.